is the 2018 Ford F-150 Platinum truck from College Ford Lincoln. It's equipped with a lot of cool features like the Sync 3 touchscreen and navigation system. Its voice recognition is the best in the business, and it's all done through Wi-Fi. The Platinum is equipped with the above view 360 camera system with multiple angles and amazing resolution, proving not all backup cameras are the same. The new B&O sound system kicks butt. I love the heated and air-conditioned seats, which are standard, but what I really love are the incredible massaging seats on both sides. It's perfect for that long ride you have to take, or if you're stressed out about that report that you have to have ready at work. The F-150 has full stop-and-go adaptive cruise control. You can also have lane assist, where it will steer you back into the lane, like when you're distracted because of that report you have to get done at work. This is the only truck with an all-aluminum body, which means it will never rust. The engine is a 3.5 twin-turbo EcoBoost with 470 torque, which is more torque than any engine, regardless of size, in any half-ton ever made, and it can pull over 13,000 pounds. Some other key features: tailgate step, box cargo system, full flat rear floor with huge amount of legroom, full glass dual panel sunroof, and the only truck with two-way remote start. It shows you in the remote if the truck started or not. Our special guest today is Lethbridge City Police Chief Rob Davis, who came to us from Dryden, Ontario. He holds a bachelor's degree in sociology from McMaster University and is a recipient of the Gimborne Award from the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police and the International Police Association for his leadership in combating organized crime and Aboriginal gangs. He is a self-proclaimed Ford man, so this is the perfect vehicle for him as he navigates through some challenging times in our city. I'm Mark Campbell, and this is Cool Cars, Interesting People.
I did.
Welcome to your Ford F-150 Platinum.
Very nice.
All right. So I do have a massage going for you if you want your prostate checked.
There we go.
You're of that age, right? You need it.
That's right.
So I know you told me that you're a Ford guy. What made you become a Ford guy originally? Or is it original? I don't know. What's your thoughts on a Ford?
So from the car side,
Yep.
My dad back in his late 20s had a Ford Cougar.
Cougar, yeah.
And that's where I know that was hands down his, sort of his baby in those years. And then when I was a young kid, I remember him having a Ford Thunderbird in the 70s.
Ford Thunderbird, yeah.
And so, he was a Ford guy, so I think that's where my interest. And then the trucks, I've just always loved the trucks,
Yep.
the Ford trucks, just the look of them, like back in the 80s
Yep.
when I was first getting my license. And I would just always like the look of the Ford truck. And then a bit of an aversion. So one of the areas I policed was the auto theft capital of Canada.
Oh, is that really?
If you were a Chev driver,
Oh, really?
we wouldn't recover very many Dodges, Fords, but we recover hundreds of stolen Chevys. So,
Now, why would that be? Why would people be stealing Chevys?
at that time, it was the demand, just the demand.
Really?
Yeah,
Really?
especially the high-end stuff. So the Denali's and.
Oh, yeah. So what was your first vehicle?
Oh, so in high school, it wasn't a Ford. My first vehicle in high school was a Chrysler Laser, which is funny here because nothing rusts in the prairies, right? So I've actually seen a couple of Chrysler Lasers here in the city.
Yes.
And that's where my father-in-law and my wife's grandpa would restore vehicles. If I had their skills, I would be flagging down one of these people with
Really?
the laser to restore it. They're already in great shape, but just to restore it to the colors and everything I had.
Yeah, that's my first car was a 1964 Plymouth Fury with a stick shift automatic.
Wow.
Yeah, it got me there. That was about it.
Yeah, I wound up with the Chrysler by default because that's when, like in the 80s, that's when Iacocca was cranking out different things.
Yeah.
And so it was affordable, and I know my dad, looking back now, I know why. It's because I'm too much like him.
Sorry, yeah.
So I think he didn't want me to have all the horses under the hood that he had as a teenager in 20s.
Yeah.
So, but it was a cool looking car and little 4-cylinder. But then from there, briefly had a Nissan Sentra that was my sister's, and just because the Laser died, and so I needed the Sentra to get to work.
Yeah.
And then from there into Ford trucks and never looked back.
Yeah, and here you are. So when you see, we're going across the Whoop Up Drive here, and the university was just there where we picked you up, and your first impressions of Lethbridge and the setting that you see. What were your thoughts?
It was breathtaking. So we actually came out for sort of the second and third stages of the interview hiring process.
Yep.
It was actually September 11th we came out, and that time of year was just awesome. The colors were awesome. It was that mixture of a lot of green with a lot of gold in the field, so it was just awesome. And then the view of the coulee, and the chair of the commission at that time invited us for dinner. So that first time going from the east to the west side, it was just breathtaking. And then the universities, so where I was policing before, you'd get a lot of kids that would look at U of L for an option.
Oh, really?
For schooling.
Yeah.
And to see that university, like, look at that view. How do you beat that?
Yeah, it really is.
So just breathtaking.
So you were pretty sold on the city when you were first looking at it, were you? Yeah. Good. Has it been everything and more for you so far?
Oh yeah. See, and I had a familiarity. So when I was seconded to the RCMP at the Canadian Police College, we would teach the Senior Police Administration course, and so it's a leadership development type of course. And there was an officer from Lethbridge that Lethbridge kept coming up as they're trying some innovative things in Lethbridge.
Oh, yeah.
So it was one of the sergeants here, George Carskadden,
Sure.
that we would second to be part of the team at the Canadian Police College, and you just hear what the Lethbridge Police were trying to implement.
Yeah.
So it was on the radar then, and it's like any industry. There's an old guard that just refuse to let go of the past and change and modernize, but for the most part, the majority are looking for change and willing to try new things. So it's been good.
Good.
Young, it's a lot younger than I'm used to.
The city?
For policing,
yeah.
Because it's 25 and out here. So back in Ontario, you had to do 30 and out.
Oh, okay.
And the most would stay beyond the 30 a couple of years.
Yeah.
So here to be in an environment where you can retire at 25 years service is foreign to me. And then the other thing is in Ontario, you'd have really good people coming out of post-secondary in the early 20s, and the recruiters would typically say, well, go get some life experience and come back.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Come back when you're 28, 29, 30. Well, that rarely happens. So,
Yeah. Jeez.
So that's where here people get hired young, but they retire young, so which is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they do their other job.
Exactly.
Got a couple of friends that I went to college with here. Actually, Tom, your predecessor.
Yeah.
Yes, I went to college with him.
Oh yeah.
He didn't retire though. Well, he did now, but he became the police chief, of course. Yeah. It's a great career, 25 years, and then retire, and you got a great pension.
Yeah.
But well worth it. So what's your jam for music?
Oh.
Oh man.
That'll work.
Well, CCR. That was yeah. What do you do?
Anything and everything.
Is that right?
Oh yeah, anything. I grew up in a bizarre household, so my dad was a hardcore old school country music guy, like Buck Owens, George Jones, Merle Haggard, that era. Yeah. And then my mom was the other end of the spectrum, especially as a little kid in the 70s and 80s. So ABBA, Boney M. So it was just a bizarre. So that's one thing with music, and it's funny because all through my life, in my high school years and into my 20s, 30s, when buddies would hop in a vehicle and start going through, back then tapes and then CDs and now into your devices, they would laugh like, "What is this?" You'll go from CCR to Kiss to George Jones all in a matter of 10 minutes.
I think variety is the best way to go with music. How can you go wrong?
Yeah, exactly.
And I always say, good music is good music, unless it's Kanye West. But other than that,
Yay, he's yay now.
Yay, sorry,
so
yay.
he's yay.
all right, let's go to the hut.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, welcome to Java the Hut Coffee. Thank you. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you.
So you made it to Lethbridge. You're the police chief. Let's go back before all of this. And you're an Ontario guy.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So where was little Rob? What were you thinking when you were growing up? Where are you originally from? Small town.
Yeah, so actually, Ashwaubenon is sort of the crossroads. So Six Nations Reserve.
Okay.
It's in southern Ontario, adjacent to the city of Brantford, but sort of we always refer to it as the village. Is Ashwaubenon.
Schwiegen.
Ashwaubenon. or those that don't know it will say Oswegan, but
Okay.
Ashwaubenon.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, Six Nations Reserve is where I grew up, and as a little kid, we were policed by the OPP when I was really young, and so a lot of the time, just when my parents' laneway sat, they had a huge oak tree at the end, so it wouldn't be uncommon for the OPP to sit in there to do radar and hide behind that oak tree.
Yeah.
So as a little kid, all the not neighborhood, but the kids along that strip of road, it was a thing to go right up and talk to the OPP sitting there. So I think that's kind of where the first impact, or whatever you want to call it, with the police was.
So did you want to be a policeman right from that?
No, I was bound and bent for the military.
Military.
Absolutely going to the military. No ifs, ands, or buts. That's where I wanted to go.
Why?
I had my grandfather in the Second World War was in the military, and I just had an interest in that. I've always believed my parents were public servants, and so to me that was public service on steroids. And I liked the whole the discipline, the regimentation, the opportunity to travel the world really appealed to me.
Yeah.
And so that's where I was heading. And then in high school, I was a pretty decent football player, and I got recruited by a few schools for university football. But in my mind is thinking, okay, well, I'll still go to the military. I'll get my degree, and then I'm eligible to go in as an officer.
Right.
And one of my best friends in high school, his uncle was a police officer, and he sort of started planting the seed that, once you look at policing, you still have the same structure, and you won't travel as much, but there's opportunities to travel, and it's along the same lines, paramilitary organization. And even then I was still, military is where I want to go. But then football's what changes is I got recruited for football.
McMaster.
That's right.
Yes.
McMaster Marauders.
Yeah.
When I was part of the rebuilding, when I came in, we were the coach there was Coach Bruno, and the mandate was to rebuild the team. So I was there for all those ugly losses. But I like to say we were the basement, the foundation, the hardcore cement bricks there that led to the dynasty that came after us.
So you weren't part of the dynasty.
No, we were the foundation. We were the foundation.
Very important.
That's right.
Yeah, you got them there.
Foundation.
Did you ever think maybe I can become a tiger cat?
No.
Not that good.
Reality is I knew my height. So at the time when I was playing, I was 270, and you benching 400 pounds easily.
Jeez. Wow.
But at the end of the day, I was still only this tall.
And you were a lineman, right?
Yeah.
Right guard.
I got recruited as a guard. Wound up there for the first year, and then they put me over to defense because I'm so short. I was able to get underneath anybody. And use hands. That was awesome.
Yeah. So you love football?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But it was that because even there. So I in that time, this friend said, "Why don't you try the auxiliary with the police?" And so I could go to school, play football, and still be involved in policing, and sort of test drive a career.
Yeah.
And just fell in love with it. Just boom, fell in love with policing.
Yeah.
And so with that, just opportunities. And even then, I was still thinking, well, military. But as I had more exposure to policing, and then the stars aligned, that there was an opportunity to get hired to go from the special constable position in the auxiliary into a full-time officer position. The way I went, and never looked back.
And the haircut doesn't change from military to police, right?
Not much. Not much. Actually, this is long. I usually have it.
I was going to say you need a haircut.
Yeah. No.
No.
It's usually high and tight. And
When did you know that, I should be a leader? I need to be the guy that runs the program. What made you say, you know what, I think I've got the skills and the ability that I should do this?
there was never an epiphany like that. What it was opportunities presented itself, and part of it was I saw some people that I didn't want to work for, and wanted to make sure the generation behind me had never had to work for.
Yeah.
But that was a small part of it. The other part of it was what I found frustrating is even back then. So back then, this is the early '90s, mid '90s. People were talking about how we're going to have a leadership crisis as the baby boom walked out the door, and everybody's kind of dismissed it. Yeah, whatever. That day will come one day, but whatever. But it really, for whatever reason, it really resonated with me. And then I never finished my fourth year, or my last year of university when I was there, so I got hired after third year, and I went back to finish part-time, and at that time I had a prof that was sort of, he had come from Wilfrid Laurier University on loan to make a master, but he would always preach to me, he goes, do you realize what position you're sitting in? And then to me, no.
Yeah.
Mid-20s, finishing my degree. He goes, yeah, but at this time, he goes, policing, teaching, he rhymes off all the public service jobs. He goes, there's going to be a mass exodus, so you're going to have an And so, it just stuck with me, but I would watch as you started to see some of the people retire, nobody was stepping up to take on the leadership people, or leadership positions. And so that's what bothered me, is those that were putting their hat in the ring, it was generally self-serving and not for the greater good.
Yeah.
And not saying everybody, but that was just an observation, is, the rock-solid leaders I was working with sort of just say, well, I'll do it in 5 years, I'll do it in 10 years, or I'm not ready yet. But as time was ticking, you were seeing those opportunities were disappearing as well.
Yeah.
So some friends of mine said, throw your hat in the ring, because if you don't do it, so-and-so's going to do it, and we don't want to work for them.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where it began. So it was really an organic thing. It was never a definitive, I want to be the boss one day.
Yeah. So fast forward to where you are here. You're a police chief in Lethbridge, population 100,000 people, and with it comes some issues. What were the first, when you first started the job, what were some of the things you said, here's what we got to focus on? And we're going, was it 5 years now? How long have you been here?
Just shy of 4.
Is it 4 years?
So
4 years, okay.
Yeah.
So when you get here are the things I got to start working on. They were?
When I got hired, the marching orders from the commission were really simple. And one was to modernize the police service, and sort of, there was a sort of old thinking, I don't know what you want to call it, sort of an old group think amongst not the entire organization, but it was sort of this bottleneck of thought. And it wasn't specific to rank, it was more specific to just sort of whatever you want to call it.
Right.
This bottleneck of barrier that was preventing change and looking at new things. So it was modernize the police service, address that, bring in some ideas that can make us more efficient, modernized, embracing technology. And
everybody needed a Kanye West CD to get young. or not.
No. And it wasn't specific to age. It wasn't specific to age. It was specific to mindset.
Yeah, right.
And so that's where it was dealing with that mindset of a minority of the group to say, hey, let's try some new things. Let's modernize and let's go that direction. So that was sort of the marching orders on that piece, and of course finding some efficiencies, because at that time, lucky me, I got here just as oil collapsed.
Yeah.
So I was in Ontario.
You won the lottery.
Sitting in Ontario, looking west, looking at all the price of oil and how prosperous everyone was, and literally, 3 months before I get here, boom, it collapses. But the good side of that is, having come from where I came from, is I've sort of grown up in a leadership role during tough times. So that's where the collapse of oil never caused me to flinch or get nervous. And it's actually, right now it's an interesting time, because a lot of the innovative ideas that have been rolled out nationally in other provinces, now is an opportunity to roll those out in Alberta.
So you grew up in a First Nations area, right? Yep. So how important is that to have that as part of your life? And coming to a place, obviously we have, big Native Reserve right here, and it's, we were influenced by that. How important is that for you?
Huge, because it boils down to one's perception and one's sort of frame of reference. And so it was funny when I was interviewed, the morning of my interview, my family and I came the night before, and so my daughter and I went for a walk at nighttime through the downtown.
Right.
And I was asked in the interview, so what'd you do last night? And I said, oh, my daughter went for, and I love old neons, so I love neons.
Yeah.
So we were walking around downtown. We'd seen the guitar sign earlier in the day, so
right.
I wanted to go see it lit up. And I said, my daughter and I went for a walk, and we walked through whatever the park is downtown. You can just kind of see this horrified look. Galt Gardens, and I said, I don't know, across from the mall. It's a beautiful park. My daughter and I, and how old's your daughter? At that time, she was, she's 12 now, so 8, 7.
Yeah.
And they had this horrified look, and they said, you did? And I said, absolutely. I said, beautiful. And but it's that frame of reference.
Yes.
Like for me to bump into a crowd of Aboriginals on the street, that's normal. It's where I grew up.
Sure.
It's family, friends. It's from that aspect, to me, it's an asset because I've never felt uncomfortable.
What is your relationship with the Blood Tribe?
It's been amazing. That's actually so. I started with Haldeman Norfolk Regional Police, and I worked in Aboriginal policing for a long time, just shy 18 years, and a lot of our challenges overlap. So Blood Tribes issues are the cities, and the cities are Blood Tribes, and so we have a great working relationship. Chief Melting Tallow and I are on the phone regularly, or meeting in person. Our officers are liaising regularly. We begin cross-training each other. They utilized us to help in carbine training. So that relationship's really strong, and that's necessary because the issues we're facing, they don't see borders, and so police services can't see borders as well. So it's a great relationship.
And I imagine, again, we talk about a public perception. You must be frustrated with some of that. What people think that you need to just move them to the reserve, sort of.
Absolutely, that's frustrating.
Yeah.
And we have we have a strong urban Aboriginal population here, and this whole concept of just moving the reserve is not acceptable in today's society, and that gets really frustrating. Especially when you look at some of the things that have happened in Canadian policing in the last 20 years, that show that that's just taboo. And again, I'm a big constitutionalist and charter rights and freedoms person, and it's prohibited. So, the other thing was with the addiction, what we're being told by the professionals is that it's afflicting all segments of the society. Like, we would be absolutely amazed who's battling addiction. It doesn't see color, it doesn't see your income, it doesn't see what you do for a profession. It's impacting everyone, and so that's where when I hear these comments that it's specifically the Aboriginal population, that gets a little tiresome. Yeah. But back to the point is the relationship with Blood Tribe is awesome. So great relationship there, and we take these challenges on together.
That's great to know. And what Aboriginal leaders hear when they know that you're Aboriginal? What does that do for them, for you? The common. Is there a sort of a camaraderie? Is that the fair word to say?
So there's sort of a standing joke amongst my circle of friends that you could take, half a dozen Aboriginal people, put them in a crowd of 1,000 somewhere, and the half dozen Aboriginals will somehow manage to find each other. And that's kind of been my experience. It's not this decreeing I'm this, I'm that. It's just it always seems that organic. And I can think of instance after instance after instance when I've traveled where it never fails. You bump into the native guy or girl. Where are you from? And the thing is, it's just like being at home. Yeah, that's great.
Now, of course, nobody saw this coming, and of course, this is it's front and foremost in our city is the drug crisis, and we talk about the opioid crisis, but I know that meth is just kind of it's overtaking the opioids in this city. It's big, it's huge. We've got safe consumption, we've got needles, debris, and everyone's saying, "What are you doing? You're doing nothing. Why aren't you doing something? Arrest everybody." Yeah. And I know you've gone on and on. You've made presentations all the time about you can't arrest your way out of this. Yep. It's multi-layered. We need another judicial system. You're handcuffed, pardon the pun, by what the Charter of Rights tells you what you can do. Yeah. So here, welcome to Alberta. Fix this. Yeah. So where are you right now? What's is it frustrating for you? Is it or you're I know that you've got a lot of innovative ideas. All of these things, but they're not going to fix themselves tonight or tomorrow. So where are you? Do you stay up at night and thinking of this stuff?
I definitely think about it. So a couple of things is nobody saw the opioid crisis coming. I can guarantee you there's not a person, save and except maybe Vancouver.
Yeah.
But at that time, anyone that was planning out the next 4 years in 2014 did not see the opioid crisis sweeping the country like it did.
Yeah.
And then on the heels of that, meth. And so in that regard, we're not isolated. That's the same story anywhere you go in the prairie provinces and even into Ontario and Quebec now. So that part's not isolated to here. But when you hear the, fix it, lock them all up, that's where it's managing expectations, and people seem to have this preconceived notion that we can just arbitrarily lock people up, and we can't. That's just not reality. It's not reality in this province or any other province. And that's the hardest part, is trying to manage people's expectations. One thing that I do notice, and so there's a need for provincial legislation. So I'll use the situation of a child in need of protection. We have very powerful provincial legislation that allows for an investigation and to apprehend the child and put them somewhere safe. If there's a mental health episode, we have very strong legislation for the family, the medical profession, the police to take the person and have them somewhere safe and be detained. Yet when it comes to the drug crisis, we don't have any provincial legislation that allows us to take them somewhere to be detained lawfully and supervised by non-police personnel, ideally medical professionals or mental health professionals trained in addictions.
And you don't have a facility to take them there if you did have it. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that goes into the whole debate. What I've noticed in the areas I've worked is, around 15 years ago, the institutions were shut down, and what happened is a lot of those people wound up migrating to the street. And so I'm not saying to bring back the institutions, but we need to bring back something that's the medically and step of the mental health and medical professionals that can tackle addiction.
Yeah. I mean, there are things going on in the city, and everyone is trying to gather all the different pillars of this epidemic together to find solutions. Are you optimistic about what that will show or
Absolutely.
what they can bring? Yeah.
And that's the thing is, we had the presentation to council on Monday about the 4 pillars. Enforcement is really one pillar of that, and I would suggest we are the smallest pillar, because what our rules are very, very succinct. What we can do, how long we can detain, whereas all those other pillars have huge roles in the continuum. And when you look at other provinces like Saskatchewan, where they've embraced the hub model, the community engagement model in Ontario, that those 4 pillars or wraparound services or whatever terminology you have are legislated to some degree, that there has to be that communication. I'm optimistic we're going to see that in Alberta.
Right. And you've been a big proponent of the Watch program, which is implemented in Winnipeg, and I've heard you talk about it, and I love the idea. You've seen it work. People that have witnessed it, especially in Winnipeg, the transition from what they were to what they are today.
Absolutely.
Much more safe. So are you optimistic that kind of a program can get going in here?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've talked to council, I've made presentations to different groups in the city about the Watch program. We have a sort of a captive audience, if you will, at the college and the university of the students that need volunteer hours. If we could leverage that, and it's a win-win. They need the volunteer hours, and there's a few angles to that I like. Is it allows people to test drive a career, whether it be policing, whether it be social services, whether it be addictions, to come in. But the other thing I like is it gives us an opportunity as the police and as a corporation to really bring in the diverse community.
Right.
And so a lot of people that have apprehension of these careers because of a language barrier or threshold testing can come in, and we can work with them to get them in the door of the respective disciplines.
Yeah.
And if they join the corporation anywhere, not just policing, anywhere, or join Alberta Health or wherever, to bring that diverse population in, that's a huge win.
Right.
So.
And again, it's a perception of safe people downtown.
Yeah.
That's the idea. They'll be en masse, and there will be a safety and numbers aspect to that, right? With
Absolutely.
the Watch.
And really it boils down to public perception of safety. There's study after study after study that talk about the value of an officer out on patrol. And in the UK, they studied it because they've had sort of levels of policing. General public don't care about the fine print on a uniform, long as it's some sort of uniform.
Yeah.
And again, I've witnessed it firsthand in Winnipeg. Like the Ambassador Watch program there is just amazing, absolutely amazing. They're everywhere, and I'm a big proponent of it.
Great. So, you must see business owners all downtown, and Brian's one of them here, and wherever you go, what's the general, what are they saying to you, or what are they wanting you to do, or what are you telling them?
It's the perception of safety. They're frustrated with the antisocial behavior. And again, this is where, especially with the drug crisis, somebody high on meth, we can't use the laws for intoxication are under the Liquor and Gaming Act, so they're specific to liquor. So we can't bend the rules and make it fit here.
Yeah.
We'll get chastised if we manipulate the criminal code to fit versus what it should really be. And again, it goes back to this lack of provincial legislation.
Yeah.
So my big thing is we need legislation. You know, let your MLAs know that, and people that are aspiring to be MLAs know that, because that's where the gap is that I see. Manitoba has legislation like this.
Yeah.
We need to follow that, make sure it's and that's the thing is, it seems we're always dealing with the crisis that is just about passing. So right now the focus seems to be on opioids, and I cannot stress that we need to be alive to meth. And if we look at the American experience, heroin after that.
Oh, really? No. Yeah.
So when I talk to colleagues that are in the States, they say, yeah, we lived through opioids, it was awful. Meth came in, and now we're being overtaken by heroin. So when we write legislation, or sorry, the powers that be write legislation, you know, I hope that they're open-minded enough to make it all-encompassing, so that if someone's high on whether it be opioids, meth, heroin, that it gives us some tools to take a person to a facility that they can be properly supervised and detained.
How are we doing in the war to cut off the supply?
It'll never end.
No,
you know, it's actually interesting you mentioned that on the weekend. I was watching a couple of movies from last summer that talked about the infiltration of Pablo Escobar's crime group, and so you think about that was the early 80s. You know, and the war on drugs was declared. Well, here we are all these years later. So that will never end.
Right.
What we can do, though, is do local focus. What impacts our backyard?
Yeah.
And so that's where my focus is our backyard. What do we do to impact our backyard? My experience has been is the average citizen doesn't want to, it's not that they don't care, but to hear about a mega bust of some organized crime leader in Calgary or Vancouver or Toronto, it doesn't resonate when you have a drug dealer on your block that's cars in and out. So it's that local focus. What are we doing in our backyard?
Yeah. And so that's, you're right. It's not going away anytime soon.
Yeah.
Speaking of movies, what's your go-to police movie?
Oh.
What are some of the good ones?
So he's not really police, he's an FBI agent, but Thunderheart's got to be a standard.
Thunderheart, okay.
Thunderheart.
Okay.
So I grew up just down the road from Graham Greene.
Oh,
so,
really?
Yeah, Graham Greene, yeah.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah, so his nephew and I played as little kids, and so we got to be loyal to Six Nations. So, and it's a police-ish movie.
Yeah, so. Please, let's go with that. Sure.
So that's an oldie but a goodie.
What pisses you off about watching cop movies when they do this and you say, I know from I watch medical movies with my wife who's a nurse, and she says, they would never do that. That's... What's that with policing? Or is there everything?
Everything. Everything's escalated to bringing out the helicopters, the tanks, the armored vehicles, and tactical teams. And, you know, and that's not reality.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, really, a lot of the jobs sitting behind a keyboard or writing in a book, or actually we've moved away from writing in a book, proud of that. Yeah. But really that sort of that follow-up piece to police work's the reality. So that's the frustrating part, is all the flashbang and glamorization, militarization.
And you've probably never fired your gun in service, have you? Or maybe
not at a human.
No.
A lot of deer have come to the end of the line. But as a result of an accident, like injured at the side of the road. I wasn't poaching.
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, no. So as we look at Lethbridge right now and where you're at, how optimistic are you? What's your future? How are you feeling? What can you say to the people right now about this city?
You know, the city's safe. That's it boils down to perception of safety. Yeah. We did our community survey in the spring with Dr. Farron Ellis. He conducted it for us. We added some additional questions in there, and the overall perception of safety is still very high in the city. I mean, but we hear it from the business owners downtown, and especially with the safe consumption site being where it is. That radius sort of has caused some challenges. Mm-hmm. But I'm optimistic that should we get our ask for the watch and some of these other things that we're asking for and negotiating, there's a lot to be optimistic about. Yeah. And again, the model's proven. The model's working in Winnipeg. It's working in Southern Ontario. Well, throughout Ontario, they have special constables. They have volunteer programs like the auxiliaries. It's working in Saskatoon, like throughout Saskatchewan.
Yep.
And so the model's working throughout the country. It's proven. So any anxiety that, oh, is it really going to work? It works.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter now of public support to make it happen.
Sure.
And,
I mean, you're confident to have your daughter, who's 11 years old, 12 years old, growing up in this city.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's good.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, but it boils back to perception. So,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, my family's back on, like my mom's still there, my sister's back in Southern Ontario, Six Nations in the area. So, like for my daughter and my son and my wife to walk around Lethbridge and interact with Aboriginal people is not foreign to us.
Right, right.
And my wife and I actually met in the flying reserves of northwestern Ontario. So,
Yeah,
it boils down to perception.
right.
And I'm the city's safe. It's still
Good.
generally safe. The spike of crimes we've seen are sort of to fuel the addiction, smashing into a vehicle to grab a purse or a wallet or something that's easily liquidated.
Right. So it's the future looks bright.
Yes, but recognize that this is a very complex problem.
Right. Yeah.
And so there's more to police involved in this, and that's where, as we spoke on Monday at council, there's the 4 pillars.
Yeah.
And so the police can do what we can do to help increase the perception of public safety, but it's those other 3 pillars that need to be addressed through the province or the federal government to make sure that they're sustainable.
Great. Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you.
Chief Davis. Be careful out there.
Thanks.